Yes. I
I
heard
want to have fun. I want to have fun over the next hour and a half or so. So let's have
that's
fun.
it. That's it. We're just playing together. I
Sure.
I like what oh goodness, name's escaping me, but he said something like we're just walking each other home.
Oh, that's Ram Dass.
Ram Dass. Yeah.
Did you
Yeah,
know
I met
him?
him I did a couple of times. I met him. Right. Yeah, yeah.
How was
I
that?
knew. I actually interviewed Timothy Leary once on TV.
Oh,
And yeah, that was quite interesting. And I went up to his house and hung out with him for a whole afternoon, just one on one with Tim Leary. Yeah,
did you have a joint with him or?
no, no, I didn't. But I asked him, I said, are you still using psychoactive kind of, plant medication? He said, oh, sure. He says, yes, I'm doing it, but not for the same reasons that I used to.
Yeah,
So he was a very interesting, very smart man,
yeah.
but very different.
Carlos, welcome.
And how do
Carlos, hey,
Chuck, you met Krishnamurti and you also met Ramdas. Do you what's your impression of them?
my impression, you mean my judgment about them or my,
No, how
my
you felt them and how you feel, and or do you feel, is there something in common between them, or did you feel they were very different in terms of how they expressed?
well, I kind of at this point in where where I'm at is that I don't see people as people. I have stories about them and memories of them, but I don't consider them as having been quote unquote real people for the same reason that I don't experience or look at or consider Jesus or Buddha or Muhammad or Lao Tzu to be real people either.
Hmm.
There are no real people. They weren't real people, and you aren't a real person. There are no real people. All there is this. All there is this. Uh, but the stories that are told personify consciousness in ways that become um, easy to then worship and slice and dice and kind of encapsulate. Well, this is what this person means. This is what this person represents. This is the path that this one points to. But all of that are just the stories. The stories. They're just stories that we tell ourselves, and in this human incarnation that I'm pretending to be, my life is about stories, and the stories are the mortar that bind together who I think I was to who I think I am now. But they they uh, they keep they keep it connected there, and we're all storytellers. We like to tell our stories. We like to hear stories from other people. We like these stories back and forth. This is the social fabric that we're connected with. The threads that weave through all of our lives are the stories that we have. Uh, and then we misidentify ourselves as being those stories, as we somehow, I am the story that I'm telling myself, and we're not. But it's these are the ornaments that we use to hang on the Christmas tree of who we think we are. But these stories need a tree, and this tree of who we think we are needs the stories. It's a symbiotic relationship. So I'm not sure where we were going with that. I don't know if you were starting with context and context. So,
We're going to cover all of that,
all right, I guess
in
we're
terms
live
of
now.
the story, then is the you, which is the indispensable one, is that a story?
It's the story that we glom onto. The story is who we think we are. It's the avatar and the role of the character that we're playing in this dream world that I'm creating. If I'm creating this dream world and the avatar is this Chuck Hillig, and the story is, well, Chuck was born in 1940 and in Chicago, and he went to this school and he had these parents, and he married this person and divorced that person and had these kids, and then he had this job, and then he went here, and then he went there. All of these things tie together, leading up to this very moment. And the realization is that these stories, and then where I'm at, this moment is not coming out of a remembered past, and it's not moving into some kind of an imaginary future. This moment does not have any next moments that are about to follow it, and it has no a bunch of moments that preceded it in any way. This moment is whole and complete unto itself. This moment is it. There are no other moments at all. And the belief that there is another moment next is what ego uses to propel itself into an imaginary future that is not present. And ego always wants to go to what's not present, what isn't there, what isn't. So it has to move that way, because in the movement of that, in the pretended movement of it, it creates a belief that it is there, because it's going to go over there, which is different than over here. So it's always on its way to someplace else. Ego wants to go to a place where it hopes to be satisfied more, or sanctified more, or made more whole in some way. It wants to better itself in some way. It wants to improve itself. And this is the great game of the ego. It always wants to be on its way to paradise, or to nirvana, or to heaven, but it doesn't want to actually get there. It always wants to be on its way there. It doesn't want to get there because it knows that if it does, it cannot survive. It will not survive. There are no egos in nirvana. So it cleverly sabotages itself and distracts itself. Let's go see this new guru over in India. Let's read this latest book. Let's go sit at the foot of this guru who's visiting in our town, because maybe that will, kind of lead me into a different space. So it has to be moving and changing and evolving and mutating in some way, because it loses everything in this present moment of now. It has no way to exist in the present moment of now. So it's either a nanosecond behind or a nanosecond in front. And those nanoseconds then are where the stories come in. Yeah. I have all the stories about where I've been and what I did and all that stuff that I'm dragging through this life. And that sustains this ego saying, well, I can tell these stories. I meet somebody new and they say, oh, tell me about yourself. Where are you from? And we start exchanging our stories, and this binds us in some way. Yeah. But there ain't nothing there. But we do this in order to sustain this false image that there is an ego that is separate, and it's on its way to someplace else, and it's going to be enlightened eventually after, a million lifetimes. The problem with that is all you're going to do is to exchange one dream called Once I Was Asleep for another dream that's now called, whoa, but now I'm awake. But these are both dreams. Yes. Because there's really no one there that any of this stuff is happening to. Yeah. And it's unfigure-outable. You cannot figure it out. And the moment you try to encapsulate it with dualistic words is the same moment that it's elusive. It just escapes from you. So can you get to a place where there's absolute silence, where there's no vibration, in the vibration that you have between what is and what you think should be, that vibration literally creates the world. This is where the indispensable one comes in. You create the world through the vibration of wanting to go from what is to what isn't. That vibration that goes back and forth between the creation and destruction of the world. I sometimes write about Brahma as being the creator, and Shiva as the destroyer, and Vishnu as being the preserver, the one that's interested in the continuity. I liken it to needing those three different parts, much like you would need someone if you wanted to have a rainbow appear. For a rainbow to appear, you need the rain, obviously, you need sun, and you need a third someone. You need an observer to witness this connection between the sun and the rain at 42 degrees. Interestingly enough, 42 degrees. Someone has to be standing at 42 degrees relative to the rain and the sun. If that happens, the rainbow shows up. If one of those parts are missing, there ain't no rainbow.
No.
I want to
So
go back to what you were saying about when we were starting, we were talking about exploring the you in the you in the line in the sentence of you are the indispensable one. Because that you, I mean, the ego seeing that immediately thinks, oh, they're talking about me, right?
no,
You refers to me, right? When I point at someone and say, you did that, that person on the other end of the finger is thinking, me? No, I didn't do that. So who is this me and this you that are indispensable?
well, I want to suggest that the dream world that you experience um, shows up from you observing it, you witnessing it. Rumi said something like that. He said, "Why do you weep?" He said, "Don't you know that you are the source of everything, that everything arises from within you?" Rumi said. Buddha said, "With your thoughts, you create the world." It's interesting because he didn't say, you create your world. This is an important distinction. Buddha didn't say you create your world. He said you create the world. The world arises from your observing it, from your witnessing it. So I'm suggesting that if you, being as you are pretending to be, are not there to witness it, much like the person witnessing the rainbow, the world does not and cannot appear. You have to be there. The world needs a you to see it, to experience it. Every night, you go to sleep, you're not dreaming, you're in dreamless sleep. What happens to the world? I suggest to consider the possibility that the world has no objective reality that continues while you're sleeping, that the world arises and gets encapsulated again in the singularity in your heart of hearts, and then you create it again, get caught in the dramas and the psychodramas of your own entanglements with your stories, and then 18 hours later you collapse the whole thing again. You are the source of the world. Buddha is right. He wasn't speaking metaphorically. He wasn't speaking, it's kind of like that. No, he's saying that's what it is. The world is your creation. You create the world. You create it as it is. In short, it seems to be the invitation to own your own dream, because there's only one dream and there's only one dreamer. Only one. There's not 8 billion dreamers out there. You are the dreaming dreamer.
So
Oh,
that
is that the content? So the you is responsible for the content, and is you then the context? Is that how we're breaking it
Yeah,
down?
well, see, that's interesting because you are both content and context. You are both content and context. You are much like a play, you are the actors, you're the director, you're the audience, you're the props, you're the special effects, and you're the space in which all of this is occurring. Yes, it's paradoxical. Yes, it does not make any sense, but non duality is nonsensical. It's illogical. It flies in the face of everything that you're saying. That doesn't make sense at all. How could that possibly be? Can you sit in the middle of this can't possibly be and be okay with that? Because if you're not willing to be with paradox,
Mhm.
you won't be with paradise.
uh, realizing the limitations that we have in all of this. Al used to say, it's a fool's errand to even speak of these things. And so let's be foolish and take the errand, maybe take the arrows that go with it. But reality, it's a word, and we really can't even conceive of it. We can't, it's certainly not a belief. It's certainly not personal. Can we explore in some fashion what is reality? Is there a common reality? Is there reality? Is the dream part of reality, or is that a different take on what we're talking about? Chuck, I'll open with you if you may.
Sure.
Thank
Um, to me, reality is that which persists unchanged in the waking state, the dream state, and the dreamless sleep state. That which doesn't change, it doesn't mutate, transform, evolve, change, any way at all that makes it different. If it does change, if something seems to change, it's illusory. Reality does not change. Consciousness is reality. You can put an equal sign between them as I'm seeing it. Consciousness is reality and it never changes. It seems to change. It can certainly pretend to change. Like all of this is the stuff that it pretends to change into. But it's like, is there real change going on? It's like a movie screen. The movie screen doesn't change. There's all kinds of things going on in the movie. There's fires and floods and people being shot and excited and loving and all that stuff. But the screen is unmoved by what is projected on the screen. And the invitation is to decide, well, not to decide, but are you the character in the movie or are you the screen? And the answer is, well, yes. Well, wait a minute. Yes to which? But it's the same thing about, is light a particle or is it a wave? Is God immanent or is God transcendent? Is the cat in Schrodinger's box alive or is the cat dead?
you.
Is the universe quintessentially one or is it multitudinous? And the answer to all of those is yes. So it's both at the same time and neither. So this is where, your mind starts going, it just gets all twisted up. So you have to relax, let it all go, and sit in the middle of and get comfortable in not knowing, not understanding, which is very Zen, actually. Anyone else want to offer anything?
Well, I'm sure somebody will have some thoughts here
Well, I
Carlos.
was going to say that, and then we'll get to Carlos. So this you is not referring to anything personal or anything. It's not referring to something that we can ever find,
The
even
you
though,
that you think you are is different from the you that you really are.
right. So because the ego which is a thought, will assume this you, which is not a thought. What we're pointing to is not a thought, but a thought will attach to it as an idea and then project it, try to become that. And but in fact, whenever anyone says I or me, they're referring to something that they can never actually find. But and that's the reality. And they're able to do that because it's real. If it wasn't real, there couldn't be a thought to attach to it. So that's one of the little nuances to kind of understand that the me, people say there's no me, there's no you, because it cannot be found. It doesn't mean that there isn't something. What that something is, we can't grasp or know directly. I mean, we can't know it indirectly, but we can be it. We are that. But the me is a name for that. And as soon as we've named it in a way, we've begun to veil it.
Yeah.
We could say there's awareness, that awareness, which is what we are, is identity, but not personal. Again,
It's
using
impersonal, right? It's
impersonal
impersonal. Right, right.
and not knowable, because there is no knower.
Right, right.
But there is an identity in awareness, and I can even Nisargadatta says awareness is identity, identity is awareness. I underscored that when I came across it some years ago, and it's only, I don't know, just somehow one moves along into some deeper understanding that yes, there is. It's not me, it's not a you, it's not a separate thing, it's not personal, but there is a salienceness, which we could use the term or the word identity, but there's no identification with it. It's not personal. So this is the paradox that
Yes,
Chuck
it
was
is.
referring
Yeah.
to. And we're just swimming in paradox.
Yes. Yeah. And this is what our logical mind's trying to wrap itself around that. It just, a lot of times people just give up. They go, this does not make any sense. I want to go to something that I can make sense out of.
Yeah.
But it is paradoxical. When you think about it, the I in the statement, I am James, I am Philo, the I is exactly the same I as the I in I, capital AM. I am. It's the same I. They're exactly identical. They're the same. There's only one I.
There's only one
Only
eye.
one eye, but
The,
everybody can lay claim to it.
yeah, that all there is this I, and but it seems like there's two. This is the funny thing. It's hilarious when you think about it. That what's going on here? It's just absolutely astounding. It looks like it's that, and yet it isn't. So living in the middle of that dichotomy, that paradox, that's where paradise is. Just to be comfortable with the fact that it it looks and seems one way, and it looks and seems the other way. Lao Tzu had something that a quote that I remember that he said something about that the pivot of Tao um, lies at the junction where all assertions and all denials converge.
Mm.
It at that middle point, exactly in the balance between them, And it seems kind of interesting and symbolic that we're meeting on the autumnal equinox, just like the spring equinox, equal night, equal day. So it's exactly balanced between those two. And that is the middle point, the middle path of Buddha. And
It's very interesting that a lot of people, I think, when they approach non-duality, and I could feel my mind kind of watching Chuck speak and thinking how I remember first approaching it and dismissing it because it felt like spiritual, it could be like the perfect recipe for spiritual bypassing. Well, I'm in the center of all things. I don't know. I am nothing. I'm dreamless and possible state. And it could, for the person once that has been in a lot of pain, it could give a perfect recipe, reasonable recipe for depersonalization, kind of detachment,
sure.
like letting go of all responsibility for compassion for others. But actually, it's the intellect wanting to grab the non-duality nugget, so to speak, and sit, but not be connected to the not knowing in the heart of that actually radiates kind of compassion.
Yeah.
It's um,
Beautiful
it's
card.
not
Good.
Yeah.
it's not a it feels like it's not a I don't know if this makes it maybe Chuck will of course expand, like could you speak to that? Does that sound accurate? Does it seem accurate? Can you speak to that kind of like hole people can fall into when they start to approach non-duality?
It depends on how you spell whole. It could be WHOLE.
Yes.
Yeah. It's and this whole thing with spiritual bypassing and pain and suffering. The pain is really for the body, the physical body. The suffering is when there's an ego, uh, is when the pain of the body is looked at through the lens of a personal ego. When that happens, it's interpreted as personal suffering. Pain just comes with the territory of having the body. It just will have its pain, but the suffering becomes very ego based, like it's happening to me, my body. I feel hurt.
If you're observing suffering, you can actually come to the view that that which is observing suffering isn't suffering.
That's right.
That which is observing fear isn't fearful, doesn't know fear. It observes fear.
Yeah.
And so because the content can be overwhelming and can obscure that understanding, that can be
Yes.
obscured. So that's where you live in the middle of things. You're living in this place of just, and it's not a person, this witnessing. It is just witnessing. It's just seeing. It's just the intelligence of any instant. It's not involved. It's seeing. And perhaps we could even say that that is the you, the invisible, ungraspable reality of what you are, which is witnessing the dream.
If it's all a dream, and I'm suggesting that there's only one of us here. I know that it seems like there's a number of people on this Zoom call, and probably in the back of your mind, you may think that there's 8 billion other people in the world. But I want to suggest that maybe you're the only one here. I want to suggest that maybe in alignment with what Nisargadatta mentioned, he said, you are having a dream that you call the world. He says, the dream is not your problem. Your problem is that you only like some parts of your dream and you don't like other parts. But it is a dream that you are having, and you can look at that yourself. Think of all the memories that you've ever had going back all of, bring out your stories, go back to your earliest memory of you in a crib, maybe, or as a toddler, or in first grade, or second, or fifth, or the tests that you took, and the friends that you had, and the bullies that bullied you, and your first date, and your first kiss, and your first time you got laid, and the first time you got drunk, and then your first time you drove a car. All of these different memories, millions of all of these memories, in every single one of those memories, every single one of those scenes, there was always a point of view from you. You've showed up in every single one of those scenes. You were always present. You were never not there. Of course, this is your dream. You're always present. You're always there.
So in the waking up from the dream, I want to go back to the analogy of the dream at night and the view through the characters or the character in that dream as being an analogy to what we have now right here. And in the dream at night, when in the awakening from that dream, all of the characters vanish, the world vanishes.
Right.
Right? So we wake up into this dream. And the suggestion is there can be an awakening from this dream.
Yes, and what happens is you can only awaken to and in your own dream. You cannot awaken in someone else's dream, and no one else can awaken in your dream. All of this is happening in your dream because there's one dream and there's one dreamer. There's only one of it. There's no, there's this I, but there's no us. There's no them. There's no our. There's no we. That's the myth, that you're creating all these other people out there to interact with, but these are imaginary characters. When you're dreaming at night, tell me the kind of luck and success you've had in going up to a dream character and saying, "You're really a figment of my imagination. I'm just making you up." They're likely to get very upset. In fact, they may even crucify you.
Has actually happened. But Chuck, well, how do we differentiate this from that dreaded word, solipsism?
Solipsism, because there's no you there at all. You are not there. In solipsism, there's you experiencing all of this, but the you that I'm talking about is what is, and there's no center to it. I think it was Saint Bonaventure said the absolute is a circle whose circumference is nowhere and whose area is everywhere, something like that. But it's everything,
Mm-hmm.
and there's nothing outside of that everything.
Yeah.
And you are that, just like Nisargadatta pointed out. I am that. That's the essence. And it's not something that can be written about and captured. It can only be at best pointed to.
Mm-hmm.
One of my books, I actually wrote with a hole in the center of the book, an emptiness. And on the cover of the book is that famous picture of in the Sistine Chapel of God the Father pointing the finger, and touching the finger of Adam. Well, I separated those and the cover of the book, and I drilled a 1-inch hole between those, so they're both pointing at this emptiness. That emptiness, that's what you are. But it's not something that you can grasp. It's ungraspable.
Right. And the you is not an individual you. That's
No.
the solipsism. It's not.
Yes, exactly.
It is everything. So that's because some people would take what you're saying and run with that as a solipsistic idea.
Sure.
And it's
yeah. Very common. That's the ego that does not want to, just go away. It does not. It wants to survive as separate. The prime directive of the ego is to survive as separate, and that's the way to do it.
Once when I was drowning, I remember I also like I can't swim. So when my feet couldn't find the water, I said, "Oh, this is how it ends. You know, this is how this life or story ends." And I just sunk back into the water. And when I did that, it was like complete peace. It was like complete acceptance. And it was like I was like in the room now again. You know? And then I heard this voice, and it was telling me, "No, no, no, you're not gonna die. Someone's going to come find you." That's particular. And then when I got out of it, I looked out of the water. And how did I look out of the water? I don't even know. But I saw this man walking towards me, and he dragged me out. And then when we were halfway out, he said to me, "If you make no effort, I'm going to leave you here." You know? And I said, "God," it was so peaceful. Then why did you come and take me out, and bring me here now and tell me you're going to leave here? Now my heart was beating so fast, I couldn't breathe, stuff like that. So much of pain. Yeah, so.
What a great story. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, there's a difference between submitting, which is like giving up, and surrendering, which is like giving in. And when you surrendered, then all of a sudden there was that peace.
Yeah, it was so amazing.
Yeah.
But I never
yes, it is.
Or anything. Yeah.
It reminds
Carlos,
me of
you
that
had
song. Oh, James, go ahead. James.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Basil.
Raja. Carlos?
Oh, I was actually going to say something that brought up to mind exactly. I think, of course, Chuck said it, that there's a very big difference between giving up, or that kind of, however, that feeling of the giving up, and the feeling of surrender. That there is a collapsing, and then the other one feels like a blooming. Yeah. And I wonder, yeah, and I wonder at if that's the key, because a lot of people can get into this non-duality conversation and play with it. And I think a lot of people have that critique of Zen, for example, that it's so very dry and you go into nothing and it's disconnected and all this kind of thing. But when you actually approach the readings of some of the Zen masters, or you run into somebody who is playing in that space, in this space, with a capital T, there's such fun, there's such joy, there's such compassion that radiates. And I think, once again, the mind, I know when I was first, I think a lot of us, when we stumble into spirituality, I know myself, you get kind of pulled there by this kind of wanting to get away from immense pain, immense suffering. And it's almost like we want to stumble into non-duality to like barricade ourselves against further suffering. And I guess if you're lucky, I think Chuck maybe add to this that it would, something suddenly happens and it flips around on you into the surrender rather than the collapsing in to kind of insulate yourself.
I think for me, what has shown up in the past is the discovery that the obstacle actually is the path. What the difficulties that have shown up, I discover they're not there to hurt me, but maybe to guide me or teach me, and it's all going to be just fine, because I believe that free will is an illusion. That the difference, I suppose, is believing that you're drawing freely on the blank canvas of your of a life, or are you painting by the numbers? Which one is it? Maybe it's both. But do you have a choice about how things are? It seems like you have the choice. But Romeo and Juliet, do Romeo and Juliet, can they really choose to not commit suicide at the end of the play? No. And yet, throughout all the play, all the acts, they're making all these choices, choice, seems like they are, and they all end up, it seems to make sense that committing suicide seems to work for them. That's what they do. One of the interesting things about it, that the very pathways that you try to take, or that you do take, to avoid what you are afraid of and what you think might be your fate, your destiny, those pathways turn out to be the very pathways that actually take you to your destiny. They actually are the ones that will take you right there. You cannot not go to your destiny. You have and who has the destiny is who you think you are. Who you really are, consciousness, has no destiny at all, has no fate. But who you think you are does, in fact, have a destiny. There will come a time when, the body will decay, and that will just, you'll cease and you'll wake up. Muhammad said, when people die, they awake, which is an interesting thing to say. There's a difference that I've seen in people that I've spoken to about how they perceive their lives, in how it unfolds or unravels.
There's only the next step, and not even the next step. There's the step where you are, and that's it.
That's right. It seems like there's a next step, but that's the ego saying there's another step. But that it's fun to pretend. Maharshi said it beautifully. He said, it's all a great game of pretending. It's pretending. Enjoy the pretense that you're creating to this wonderful dream world. Enjoy it. Throw yourself into it. Have fun with it. It's having fun with you. Have fun with it. It is you. You're always, you are who you are looking for. You are what you are looking at. There's no not you. It's all you, cleverly disguised as not you. But it's all you. There's nothing else. All there is this consciousness. You are that.
I just like that message Chuck mentioned a couple of times about, have fun. I mean, it's because basically we're dealing in a world of, you can say confusion, but at least paradox. And if you don't live with if you don't live the paradox, then you'll try to, insulate yourself from it. And that's where life can get a little sketchy. So, but it can be difficult. Paradox and confusion are not fun. But once you, surrender or understand it, and what you could through these teachings that Chuck's talking about, then you enjoy the ride. I mean, I was reading the book On the Road by Jack Kerouac, and the main character is Dean Moriarty. And in one of the scenes, Jack Kerouac's writing, he's talking about how Dean Moriarty's going on and on about life, the ups, the downs, the struggles, and it's wild and it's jazz-like and it's crazy. And at the end of Dean Moriarty's rant, Jack Kerouac says, well, what do we do about it all? And Dean Moriarty says, it's 2 words, enjoy it.
Yeah, that's right.
It's so important to do what we enjoy. I mean, because joy is our nature. It's not a doer. There's nobody doing it. There's just joy, enjoying, love, loving, beauty, beautifying, peace, being peaceful. There's nobody who has to make any kind of effort to become any kind of projection. Isn't that freedom? Isn't that beauty? Isn't that joy?
Freedom's just another word for nothing left to choose.
Oh, I like that.
Nothing left to choose. Just let it all go. It's all going to unfold and reveal itself as it is, and keep on saying yes to it. You don't have to understand it or figure it out or defend it or explain it to yourself or to anyone else that you think is there. Just keep on welcoming it. Keep on saying yes, yes. Because, it's funny that the universe, consciousness is an experience junkie. It wants to experience everything. It wants to experience stuff from the sublime to the ridiculous. It wants to experience stuff from the agony to the ecstasy. It wants to experience the polarities of it, what it means to be, to be. It just wants everything. And it never says no. It always says yes. It keeps on saying yes. It only says no if you say, oh, you want to stop saying yes? No. It wants to always say yes. It wants to always welcome. And so, in that spirit, the more that you welcome how life is, the more that you say yes to it, the more you align yourself with it 100%, so that what is what you say should be. And what you say should be is aligned with what is. In that alignment, when you have those circles being concentric to each other, therein lies peace. Then there's no, then you're just relaxing into this moment exactly as it is, not 99% of how it is, but 100% of how it is. You're saying the unambiguous yes.
I have to say I have issues with that. I have thoughts around that. Like, because in a way you are talking to the ego, giving the ego a way to get through the world, get through the lifetime. When in fact, everything that happens is what is happening. And it's all being seen without any interference at all. No interference. And that's the freedom of the content of consciousness, is that it's free to do whatever it's doing in any moment. If someone suffers in that, then that is also what is happening. Now that person, that ego, yes, we can say, well, do this and do that. But we're really just putting lipstick on a pig in that sense, because whatever is going to happen is going to happen. The ego might do this, that's what is happening. It might feel this way, that is happening. Everything is happening. There's no one in control. And there's no one to do anything about it either. So I always, for me, it's a way to just be pragmatic and realistic with all of this. There's no one in control, and there's no one to do anything about it. It's just happening. And it's happening freely, absolutely freely.
Things seem to happen if there's a belief in the linearity of time, where there's a before, nothing was going on, now something is happening, and then after a while it will not happen. But suppose all there is this moment and there is nothing happening. It seems like there's something happening, but that's the ego's desire to have a past that it's living out of and a future that it's living into. If this moment is whole and complete unto itself, it's much like, if you can imagine drawing a line that's like a foot long, and there's a black dot at one end of it, and that's you when you were born, and you're moving along, and here you are as a child, and then you're an adolescent, then you're a teenager, and then you're middle-aged, and maybe there's still some time left before the inevitable will happen, and you come to the end of the line. But there's a black dot that seems to be moving along in a time-based linearity from where you were born to where you're going to pretend to die. But suppose that's not it at all. Suppose all there is this black dot, where there's no past that it's living out of, that there's no future that it's living into. that this moment is whole, it's complete, and there's nothing that needs to be done or that was undone. Everything is as it is, but it's not going anywhere. It's not leaning into the next moment. There are no next moments for consciousness to lean into. It just is. It's not going anywhere. It doesn't have any parts, any moving parts. It doesn't have any boundaries. It doesn't have any corners. It doesn't have any edges. It just is. Just to surrender to that and just live into that. It's just,
But who's surrendering to that and who's living into it?
consciousness surrenders to itself. Awareness is only aware of itself. Consciousness only sees itself because there's nothing else to see. Consciousness is everywhere you look. You're always looking directly into the multifaceted face of God, but you don't recognize your own face. It's all you. There's nothing that's not you. There's nothing that's not consciousness.
Would you what do you think of the idea that there is something beyond consciousness?
Oh, another concept.
Yeah. Something that's witnessing the witnessing,
Oh,
something
well,
that's
maybe.
seeing the consciousness.
It's turtles all the way down, right?
Yeah. Is it though? Yeah.
Well, we can tell ourselves stories about that. Maybe there is, maybe, all of this stuff, but it's stuff that keeps us going. What if, what if, what if? But it's like a slinky toy. If the more that we ask these questions, trigger answers, and that answer triggers yet another question. And it's like the slinky toy that we saw as kids, going down the steps. One would lead to the other, would lead to the other, would lead to the other. Can we get to a place where we run out of the questions that we ask? Can we sit in the middle of not knowing, not understanding? Can we be comfortable with just the silence of, can we be there without speculation?
Yeah, that's what I'm pointing to, that there is
theorizing.
What I'm pointing to is that there is that place that you're actually talking about. In my view, is beyond consciousness.
Okay, consciousness is a word.
Yeah,
And
like
it's a concept.
the experience of the content.
If there's an experience, there has to be an experiencer who's experiencing that experience. But again, the moment you start talking in that kind of going down that rabbit hole, you sliced up again, and now you're back to being dualistic. An experiencer who's having an experience that he can then talk about at some later point down the road.
Right, but that experiencer is and that's another word, right?
Another word, yep. These are all words, but all these words, they're, throughout the words. The words
it's just an area
muddy the water.
It's an area that's being explored here. It's not like there's anybody wanting to do it, but there's something that is being overlooked, that I've overlooked for a long time. And it's just this simple understanding that whatever one is aware of, and maybe it's this indispensable one that we can't, which is a way of trying to point to something that can't be pointed to. But this indispensable one, it seems to be the ground zero. There seems to be a ground zero, which is not experienceable.
Yes, awareness is not an experience.
No.
For me, there's just one. I mean, just to put it into words, but there's only awareness, not a word, whatever that is, however we try to word it. The awareness that there's an awareness of right here and right now has no qualities and raises no questions, has zero needs to be known by a knower.
The awareness has nothing to be aware of.
Right.
This is the you go, wait, what? Awareness has nothing to be aware of. That's right. It has nothing to be aware of.
Just awareness.
Awareness is there.
Awareness
Well,
is
again, that's these are words, and it's funny. As soon as you mention awareness, you're starting to think about what all that means. You'll come up with your past and all. What does awareness mean? This and that and that and this.
Yeah.
But beyond those words, beyond all of that, on the other side of the words and the definitions, in that silence, go there.
Yeah.
Not the words, not the definitions. That's not it. If you can think about it, if you can feel it, if you can speak of it, if you can do it, that ain't it. And yet
Right.
it is.
Exactly.
and yet it is.
That's it. That.
Thank you, everyone. I just really feel refreshed.
That's great.
Feel like I've been in the spiritual spa, and regenerated, and it's wonderful to actually just default totally into our being nature. And for me, from the perspective that there is a identity that has nothing personal, that's totally intimate, that's totally inclusive, and its qualities are peace, beauty, love, and joy. Not the words, but the nature, and not the nature in terms of manifest in material, but the immaterial nature of our being is joyful, is playful, is loving, is beautiful, is wonderful. It's a celebration. It's a celebration.
It is, James, and I applaud you for that, because I'm totally aligned with that. I think that people take all of this much too seriously. I've listened to many talks of other people, other satsangs and stuff. Not many, but enough of them, and everybody seems so damn serious. I don't see anybody smiling. I don't see anybody laughing, and they should be laughing.